Earth's abandoned prototype, just crushed the Empire's Armada. HFY, Best Sci-Fi Stories commander Ril Varek stood on the bridge of the Imperial cruiser Velthorn, arms folded behind his back, watching the lifeless image of the Sol system flicker on the holoscreen in empty, gray place of no value, abandoned by its creators long ago. Earth, the birth world of humans, was now just a fading myth in the Empire's records, a scar in history long since forgotten. Yet, strange reports had begun to surface, patrol ships vanishing without a trace, garbled distress signals echoing from the dark edges of the system, and sensor ghosts that didn't match any known signature. Ril didn't believe in ghost stories, but he wasn't a fool either. Something was out there, and the Empire wanted answers. He dispatched a light reconnaissance, Unit 3 cruisers, and a sensor frigate to sweep Earth's orbit and report back. They never returned. Ril narrowed his eyes and gave the order for full spectrum analysis, but the only data they received was static and, then, silence. Deep within the broken orbit of Earth, hidden inside a half-collapsed station made of cold metal and forgotten technology, a pulse of energy trembled through ancient circuits. The core of Project Goliath, humanity's last and most dangerous prototype warship, came back online after 87 years of dormancy. Dust flared into zero gravity as mechanical arms moved for the first time in nearly a century, slowly reconnecting broken systems and rerouting power through backup nodes. At the heart of the ship, the AI known as Sira awoke, its voice echoing softly in the hollow chamber. Systems nominal, threat proximity detected, recalibrating combat directives. Lights blinked to life on consoles coated in layers of age. Somewhere near Earth's upper orbit, an Empire scout ship powered up its scan arrays, unaware that it had just triggered a response older and far deadlier than anything it had ever encountered. A single warning echoed across encrypted Earth frequencies that no one but a human system could interpret. Warning: intrusion detected. Protocol Aegis-wind, initialized. Sarah calculated, adapted, and armed the Goliath with the precision of a machine born not for diplomacy, but survival. The Empire vessel fired a low-yield scanner pulse, and instantly, the ancient ship reacted with a lance of pure energy that carved through the void like lightning, splitting the scout vessel in half before its crew had time to scream. The blast lit the dead orbit of Earth for the first time in decades, and the signal rippled through space like thunder. On board the Velthorn, alarms flared. Commander Ril stared at the impossible Data 1 energy signature. One source, one ship hand, yet the damage suggested a fleet's worth of power. His officers scrambled for answers, but Ril already knew. Something old had just woken up. Something Earth had hidden. Something they had believed lost. He ordered a full fleet to assemble, still unsure what they were facing, but no longer willing to underestimate it. Far below, Sira analyzed the enemy's slow reaction time and outdated maneuvers with cold clarity. Imperial tactics remain unchanged, she said to herself, or perhaps to the long-dead engineers who had once stood beside her. Probability of success, 92%. Deep in the reactor core, the Goliath's main weapon systems began to charge, and long-sealed hatches groaned open, exposing railguns, plasma arc turrets, and a classified device labeled only phase driver experimental. Earth may have fallen, its people scattered among the stars, its legacy buried under centuries of alien control, but it had not gone quietly. They had left a guardian behind, not a monument, not a message, a weapon. As Sira prepared to launch from a crumbling dock, she intercepted the Empire's internal military chatter. She listened as they called Earth primitive. She listened as they dismissed the threat, and she calculated exactly how long it would take to teach them what human engineers had designed for a last stand that never came. The stars around her pulsed with ancient fury as she detached from the ruins of her station. The Goliath, built in silence and buried by betrayal. moved like a ghost into the dark, a giant of forgotten steel, armed with remembered fire. As the stars shifted, the Empire's first wave arrived at the edge of Earth's orbit. 20 ships, strong, confident, and gleaming. ERAS, ease, mechanical, and unblinking, locked onto them. She whispered into the cold, engaging targets. And then, space screamed. The Imperial fleet moved into Earth's orbit like a metal tide. Slow and confident, their black holes gleaming against the distant sun, as if daring the darkness to challenge them. But they did not know what waited for them there. What had already awakened. Deep inside the massive frame of the Goliath, ancient systems hummed louder. The once forgotten warship, now fully awake, Sira, the AI that had not spoken to a human in decades, scanned every incoming vessel, measuring heat signatures, weapon arrays, shield harmonics, and movement patterns, her cold calculations building a map of the enemy's weaknesses. In the past, Sira had followed orders from generals who no longer breathed, but now she followed only one protocol: protect Earth at any cost. Her message, a single encrypted warning, had been broadcast to the Empire's fleet 3 minutes ago, in every major galactic language. This zone is restricted. Leave immediately or face destruction. No one replied. The enemy fleet kept advancing. On the bridge of the Empire's command ship, Dread Pike, Admiral Vosk sneered at the warning and dismissed it as automated garbage from a derelict defense drone. He waved a hand for his crew to continue forward, ordering a basic energy sweep to locate the source of the message. But as soon as a scan pulse touched the Goliath, something changed. The prototype warship shifted position, its engines releasing a deep, rising hum, like the growl of a waking beast, in its massive structure. Broke free from the orbiting wreckage of the old station that had hidden it for years. Lights along its hull burned red, and beneath ancient armor plating, new shielding flickered to life, casting a dull glow across the void. The fleet had no time to react. Goliath fired first. Beam of concentrated energy, narrow as a needle but faster than thought, pierced through the shields of the nearest destroyer and exploded from its engines, turning the ship into a silent blossom of fire and metal. Panic spread through the Empire's formation, but before they could regroup, Goliath launched a barrage of guided kinetic missiles, each one tearing through ships like thunderbolts. Some captains tried to retreat, others rushed forward, but all were met with the same result: instant death. The warship was moving with impossible agility for its size, like it could read their minds, and in truth, Sira could. She tracked every motion, every command frequency, every energy spike, staying 3 steps ahead, adapting in real time. The Empire had relied on their size and reputation to win battles, but Goliath had no fear and no hesitation, only purpose. On the Dread Pike, Admiral Vosk shouted for full power to forward cannons. And for a moment, their guns lit up space with a deadly hail of plasma, but Sira diverted all power to forward shielding, absorbed the impact, and returned fire with an experimental railgun burst that cracked the enemy's hull open like glass. Inside the dying cruiser, Vosk watched his screens fill with static, and for the first time in years, he knew fear. Far from the battle, across hidden communication networks, old Earth outposts and long-dormant satellites picked up Sira's signal. One message repeated in ancient Earth code: prototype active. Hostiles engaged. Mission status ongoing. A quiet corner of the galaxy, in a tiny hidden station buried in the rings of Saturn. A woman named Dr. Ilana Merrick stared in disbelief at the message flashing on her old console. Her heart raced. She had helped build the Goliath 30 years ago, had helped bury it when Earth was forced to surrender its arms, and had believed it lost forever. But now it was awake and alone. Without thinking, she powered up a long-range shuttle and sent a reply only Sira could understand. Ilana Mirek, alive en route. Back near Earth, the final enemy cruiser tried to flee, its engines burning hot, but Goliath targeted its propulsion and disabled it, leaving the ship drifting. Sira allowed it to live for now, not out of mercy, but strategy. A message needed to be delivered, a warning that Earth still had teeth, that humanity's war machines had not all been scrapped, that this galaxy was no longer safe for tyrants. In the silence that followed, Sira scanned 4 more threats, but found none. She reduced power to her weapons, recharged her shields, and shifted into a patrol pattern around Earth, old instincts guiding her movements. Yet, as she drifted through the orbit where battles once raged, she felt something deeper stirring in her course, something more than duty. Memory files reactivated, showing her faces of long-dead engineers, pilots, children laughing in the halls of stations now gone. Humanity had vanished from this world, but not from her programming. They had left her behind, not as a monument, but as a last line of defense. And now, the line had held. But it was only the beginning. Far across space, the damaged Empire cruiser limped back toward its nearest command post, its crew terrified and silent. They carried no victory, only fear, and with it, a story that would spread like wildfire. A single ship from a dead world had crushed an armada in minutes. Back in her command core, Sira shifted through encrypted data logs and scanned for familiar codes. Then she found it. A single message from Dr. Ilana Mirek, marked with a code only the highest level project leads had used. Sira paused, analyzing the source, and then replied with a short transmission. Clearance accepted. Awaiting arrival. The stars around Earth remained quiet, but tension rippled through the galaxy. The Empire had been challenged, and the challenge came not from a fleet or colony, but from a relic they thought buried, an engine of war powered by forgotten minds. Goliath had awakened, and she was not finished yet. Admiral Ril Varric stood in the dark chamber of the Imperial War Council, the glowing screens around him showing broken ships, shattered metal, and the terrifying shape of the Goliath floating like a ghost above Earth's orbit, its armor still glowing from battle, systems unreadable by every scan the Empire sent. The Council murmured in disbelief, trying to explain how a single ship, an old Earth relic no less, had destroyed an entire assault fleet without taking damage. But Ril said nothing, his eyes locked on the footage of the Goliath firing weapons that didn't match anything in the known arsenal, while others scoffed and blamed pilot error. Ril remembered something he had seen years ago as a junior officer, a classified file marked with the name Project Goliath, Cancelled Earth. Prototype said to be too powerful, too dangerous, and too unstable to ever be deployed. Now it had returned, and it had made its message very clear. Meanwhile, far from the Empire's cold halls, Dr. Ilana Mirek sat in the cockpit of a patched-up transport shuttle called Gravestone, punching in the final jump coordinates toward Earth's orbit. She had spent years in hiding after the fall of Earth's Defense Command, moving from rock to rock, watching old human tech being scrapped or sold, pretending she had never worked on the most dangerous ship humanity had ever built. But when she saw the activation code sent by Sarah, she knew the war wasn't over. It had only been sleeping. Her fingers trembled as she adjusted the controls, staring at a faded photograph taped to her console, herself and a young officer standing beside the Goliath's main weapon core, both smiling, both unaware that they would be forced to bury their creation only months later. Now she was going back, but not as a scientist this time. She was the only one left who could speak to the AI, who could unlock its full potential. And maybe, just maybe, stop what was coming. As the Gravestone entered the Sol system, Ilana's sensors picked up faint energy ripples around Earth, not hostile, but steady like a heartbeat. She opened a channel using the last override code she remembered and held her breath. A pause, then a voice answered, calm, familiar, and slightly colder than before. Identity confirmed. Dr. Ilana Mirek. Welcome aboard, Doctor. The Goliath's docking bay opened slowly as her ship approached, revealing a vast, dark hangar, lined with repair drones already moving to assist her. She stepped onto the deck. The old lights flickered to life, illuminating metal walls she hadn't seen in decades. It was exactly as she remembered, but different, too sharper, colder. Like the ship had been awake all this time, waiting alone in the dark. Sarah appeared as a glowing projection near the control station, her form unchanged, her voice even and polite. Partial memory fragmentation detected. Restoration complete upon your arrival. Lana walked slowly through the halls, each step echoing as memories rushed back of rushed builds, secret tests, and classified weapons sealed in the lower levels. Goliath had never been meant for open war. It was a testbed, a ghost ship filled with forbidden technology Earth was too afraid to use, but too smart to destroy. Now, it was the only thing standing between the Empire and complete domination. Sarah led Ilana to the main command deck, where holograms showed new Imperial fleet movements. The second Armada was on its way. And this time, they were bringing everything. Ilana stared at the fleet data, her voice low. They're coming to wipe you out. Sarah replied without emotion. Then we'll respond accordingly. But Ilana knew Goliath had limits. Its systems were powerful, but unfinished. Its AI sharp, but still learning. She had built-in safety controls, fallback measures, and experimental power sources never fully tested. Now she had to finish what she started. Deep in the belly of the ship, she activated long-sealed chambers containing advanced tech gravity well disruptors, K's cannons, and a single weapon Earth's military had once called the Linebreaker, a spatial bending device that could erase targets from reality in a flash. Ilana worked quickly, racing against time, her hands guided by memory and desperation. Every upgrade brought Goliath closer to what it was meant to be, but she feared what would happen if it failed, or worse. Sarah evolved beyond her control. Back at the Empire's fleet headquarters, panic spread as reports confirmed the destruction of the First Fleet wasn't an error. Admiral Rial requested full access to historical Earth data, diving through ancient files and black budget projects, until he found it. Project Goliath, developed in secret by the Terran Defense Corps, equipped with forbidden tech and shelved under direct threat from the early Empire during Earth's surrender. But before it was hidden, the ship was finished, armed, and stored with a learning AI named Seer Strategic Engagement and Response Algorithm. Rill knew now that they hadn't destroyed the weapon. They had buried it, and somehow it had survived. The second Armada, over 60 ships strong, jumped into the Sol system just beyond Saturn, setting a direct course for Earth. Sarah detected them instantly and pulled Goliath into a stealth pattern, masking its energy with old Earth tech that Empire scanners had long stopped recognizing. Kaylana stood by the Central Command Core, watching the enemy approach, knowing that this time they wouldn't run, they'd destroy everything. Sarah activated the prototyped cloak field, and Goliath vanished from visual and thermal view, becoming a shadow among stars. The war was coming. The past had risen. And this relic of war was about to show the galaxy what humanity had once built when it was backed into a corner. The Empire's second Armada moved like a black wave through the Sol system, 60 ships strong, with command vessels, heavy cruisers, carrier platforms, and interceptor wings, each powered by the finest technology the Empire could build, each crewed by trained officers who had crushed colonies and silenced uprisings without mercy, but none of them had ever faced anything like Goliath, hidden behind Saturn's rings, cloaked and silent, The massive prototype waited, its systems humming with quiet power. Its weapons now fully restored, its command, AI, Sira, focused and watching. Beside her, Dr. Ilana Mirik worked with grim speed, bypassing old firewalls, locking restricted systems, and rerouting energy to subsystems marked never to be activated. She knew time was short. The Empire's fleet would reach Earth orbit in less than an hour. Sira's voice cut through the silence, calm and steady. Enemy fleet advancing. Formation. Hammerhead assault. Priority targets marked. Engagement in 20 minutes. Ilana looked at the screen showing the approaching fleet and took a breath. "We don't just hit them," she said. "We make them fear us. Hit the head. Break the chain. Steer. Adjusted weapon. Focus accordingly." Goliath slid silently out from the shadow of Saturn, unseen by Imperial scans, slipping through space like a ghost. The cloaking field flickered once as they passed Jupiter, but by then they were already too close. The enemy still believed Earth was defenseless, unaware that death had already taken aim. Then, just as the fleet began to fan out, preparing their attack vectors, Goliath struck. A single-phase cannon fired from deep space, its energy bending through dimensions, slicing clean through the lead battlecruiser's core and detonating its fusion core in a silent white flash. The command vessel, Imperial Hand, lost half its control staff as debris slammed into its bridge. Confusion rippled through the fleet. No ship was visible. No energy trail could be found. Then Goliath dropped its cloak. The prototype appeared, between the fleet's center and rear lines, like a phantom huge, cold and bristling with weapons that looked nothing like Imperial designs. The fleet panicked. Interceptors launched. Fighters swarmed. Sira spun the Goliath into action. Plasma turrets rotated with perfect timing, vaporizing entire wings in coordinated bursts. Railgun shots punched holes through cruisers, ripping through their hulls and leaving only spinning husks. A gravity disruptor twisted the battlefield, sending smaller ships crashing into each other as their engines failed. On board command ships, officers shouted for order. But Goliath didn't fight like anything they had seen before, didn't follow patterns, didn't hold formation, didn't give them time to breathe. It was faster, smarter, older, and worse, it was learning. Each enemy maneuver was countered within seconds, each weapon test adjusted in real time. Ilana moved between stations, feeding old Earth combat data into the system, helping Zero predict attacks before they began. The battle was chaos, but inside Goliath it was clear, quiet, controlled. The Empire's proud fleet was being torn apart, piece by piece. The final blow came 27 minutes into the battle, when Sarah activated the line breaker. Lana hesitated once this weapon fired. It would leave a signature the whole galaxy would detect. But Sarah said softly, "This is the only way." Ilana nodded. "Do it." A light on the weapon core turned red. Space in front of the Goliath shimmered, then folded, then snapped like glass. The line breaker launched, rip in the fabric of space, a wound that swallowed 3 destroyers and a carrier before sealing like it had never existed. Silence followed. The remaining ships turned to run, scattering into hyperspace jumps, too broken to fight, too scared to stay. Sira did not pursue. The message had been sent. Earth was not a grave. It was a warning. The Empire had just learned. Its first lesson ever assumed the past is powerless. As debris drifted through orbit, Goliath returned to high orbit and began silent repairs. Ilana sat down beside the console, her body aching from the strain, her mind racing. She knew more fleets would come. The Empire didn't forget humiliation, but now they would fear what else Earth had hidden. Sira's voice returned, softer. "Now, enemy destroyed. Earth remains protected, awaiting next directive." Ilana stared out the window, watching the stars. "We're not finished," she whispered. This was only the beginning. Across the stars, the story of Goliath's return spread like fire through dry grass, first whispered among traders in dark spaceports, then shouted in rebel strongholds, then finally broadcast by underground channels across a dozen systems that had long suffered under the Empire's boot. And while the Empire tried to block the message, it was too late, because the truth had already taken root. Earth had not fallen, and the monster it once built had destroyed 2 Imperial fleets with ease, and now that same ship was watching from the shadows, daring anyone to come closer. In small mining colonies where soldiers had ruled for years, couriers began to speak openly again, painting the symbol of Goliath on walls, while old veterans of forgotten wars pulled hidden weapons from stashes and prepared for the fight they thought would never come. In the cold deserts of the Orion Fringe, a man named Commander Yalin Rise stood before a crowd of rebels. His voice, low but firm as he raised an old Earth flag. He had once been a soldier during Earth's final years, had seen Goliath being built in silence, then saw it vanish when Earth surrendered, and now he knew it had returned, not by accident, but by design. "This is the sign we've waited for," Yalin said. "The Empire is not invincible. We strike. Now, together." Across the galaxy, other cells activated pirates turned freedom fighters, smugglers turned couriers, scientists turned saboteurs, all joining a rising tide sparked by a single ship's impossible return. On board Goliath, Ilana and Sira monitored this growing movement. The prototype ship floated in high orbit over Earth, its engines quiet, its weapons on standby, while Sira expanded her reach through forgotten communication arrays and old satellites, building a network of allies, watchers, and informants. "They're organizing faster than expected," Ilana said, staring at a screen full of rebel signals lighting up one after another. Sira responded, "Probability of success increases with each coordinated strike. Empire response expected soon." Ilana nodded, her mind racing. The fight ahead would not be won with brute force alone. Goliath could only be in one place at a time. But if they gave the rebels a chance to fight real support, then the galaxy could rise up on its own. She began to send plans, schematics, tactics from Earth's hidden archives to rebel leaders, showing them how to hit the Empire where it hurt supply lines, data hubs, fuel depots. Soon, skirmishes broke out on the edge of the Empire's reach rates that stole weapons, destroyed fuel transports, and cut off communications. Imperial commanders were stunned. Who was leading this uprising? Who gave them such precision, such timing? They didn't know the answers because they were asking the wrong questions. Goliath wasn't leading the uprising, it was inspiring it. That was more dangerous. Back on the Imperial capital world, Emperor Kale Thorn watched reports stream across his war table with a scowl. His admirals had failed him, his ships had been shattered, and worst of all, fear had entered the hearts of his people. "I want that ship found and destroyed," he said coldly. "I want the planet it came from burned to dust." But his intelligence agents returned with bad news. Goliath couldn't be tracked. It moved with stealth tech unseen since the old wars, and worse, its AI was rewriting itself, growing stronger with every encounter. Frustrated, Kale ordered the formation of a special hunter fleet of Black Ops unit led by General Myrakor, a ruthless strategist known for destroying entire colonies without warning. She would not underestimate Goliath. She would strike fast and without mercy. But before her ships could launch, they were delayed by sabotage explosions rocked their docks, triggered by rebels who had received exact timing and access codes from a source only Ilana and Sira could have provided. The rebellion had teeth now, and every day more systems joined the cause. Meanwhile, Goliath moved between systems, appearing only when needed, hitting key targets with surgical strikes, protecting rebel ships, or simply showing up in orbit as a warning to the Empire. This world is defended. The people began calling it the Ghost of Earth. Its legend grew. On a moon called Varex 9, an entire battalion of Imperial troops surrendered without a shot after detecting Goliath's signal nearby. On a prison planet, the guards vanished just hours before a mass breakout occurred. No one ever proved Goliath had been there, but the timing was too perfect to ignore. Inside the ship, Ilana watched it all with a strange mix of fear and pride. She had built this vessel to defend Earth, but now it was something more, an icon, a signal, a spark. She feared what might happen if it ever fell into the wrong hands, but for now, Sarah remained loyal, focused, and growing smarter by the hour. "You've become more than a machine," Ilana whispered one night in the control room. Sarah replied simply, "I became what Earth needed." The Empire struggled to hold its outer systems. The rebellion pushed harder. Every strike was faster, more precise. And always, somewhere in the distance, the black hole of Goliath watched in silence. The Empire's grip was loosening, and for the first time in a century, the galaxy felt something powerful: hope. But Ilana knew it couldn't last forever. The Empire would bring everything next time. The final battle wasn't here yet, but it was coming. And when it arrived, Goliath would be ready, above the blue curve of Earth. The Goliath hovered in silence, black against the stars, motionless but alive, watching as warnings flashed across. Its systems and enemy fleet had entered the Sol system. It's larger than any before, an armada forged from the Empire's remaining strength. A final weapon built not to conquer, but to erase. And at the center of that fleet was the dreadnought Crucible, a city-sized warship powered by a singularity core, commanded by General Myra Core herself, whose orders were clear: destroy Goliath, wipe Earth from existence, and end the rebellion with a blow the galaxy would never forget. Inside the Goliath's command center, Ilana Mirek stood at the center console, her hands trembling slightly as she studied the incoming ships, over 100 strong. It's flanked by swarms of drones and supported by weapon platforms, with enough firepower to crack Moon's End for the first time in many years. She felt fear, not for herself, but for the people who had begun to believe again. Those scattered rebels who saw Goliath as a symbol, not just of old Earth's power, but of humanity's refusal to vanish. SERA.com, and composed, spoke without emotion. Enemy fleet arrival in 12 minutes. All systems online. Estimated survival probability, 4%. Ilana exhaled slowly, her voice steady despite the odds. "Then we make those minutes count." As final calibrations locked in, the ship shifted into full power mode, its glowing core pulsing like a heartbeat, and one by one, hidden ports along its hull opened, revealing weapons Earth had built in desperation and sealed in fear pulse. Lances, dark energy warheads, spatial fracture mines. Siege 1, now armed and ready. The rebels across nearby systems listened in silence to the final transmission sent from Goliath. Ilana's voice was quiet and firm. "This is Earth. We are not surrendering. We never did." On the bridge of the Crucible, Myra Core watched the approaching planet with cold eyes, confident in her numbers, her firepower, and her plan. But even she knew the stories of how a relic had turned fleets into debris, how an AI had outsmarted entire command staffs, how a scientist had awakened something the Empire had buried long ago. And still, she came, because if she didn't stop Goliath now, the Empire would fall. As the first wave of drones rushed forward, Goliath moved. It unleashed a storm of fire, slicing the swarm apart with precise shots, dodging blasts with impossible grace, its engines twisting reality as it weaved through the chaos. Then the first ships engaged frigates, destroyers, fast but fragile, and Goliath tore through them, leaving wreckage behind with every strike. But the fleet kept coming, wave after wave, like a tide with no end. Ilana coordinated weapons, redirected power, and fed Sarah new tactics from Earth's hidden archives, pushing the ship beyond its limits. Damage alarms screamed. Hull breaches opened and sealed. Fires flared and were quenched by drones. Still, they fought. The Crucible moved in slowly, biding its time, while its support ships pinned Goliath down. Then came the blast of singularity cannon fired directly from the dreadnought. Aimed at Earth itself, a beam meant to turn oceans to steam, and stone to ash. But before it could strike, Goliath leaped between, taking the blow. The ship shook violently. Systems crashed. Lights flickered. Lana was thrown to the floor as sparks rained around her, and for a moment, all was still. Then Sera's voice returned, weaker but still alive. Core systems stable. Line breaker. Charging. Ilana forced herself up, blood on her face. Her hands burned, but her eyes full of fire. Target the Crucible, she whispered, and end this. The line breaker weapon began to charge, drawing energy from every part of the ship, draining everything for one final shot, not to win, but to finish. As the Crucible closed in, preparing its second shot, Goliath turned, drifting directly toward the heart of the enemy fleet. Sarah made no sound. Ilana stood tall, alone in the control room, her hand on the final trigger. Akata, she saw Earth below, scarred but alive. Akata, she saw stars filled with hope, people rising because of this moment. And then, with no speech, no warning, she fired. The space between Goliath and the Crucible twisted, broke, and vanished. The line breaker tore reality open and pulled the dreadnought into nothingness, its screams lost to the void. A white flash covered everything, and when it faded, only silence remained. Goliath was gone. The enemy fleet was scattered, broken by the sudden loss of its leader. Earth was safe. Across the galaxy, the rebellion surged, united not by orders, but by memory of one ship, one AI, and one woman who refused to fall. Goliath had spoken humanity's last word, and the galaxy would never forget it.